Oh my God!
I'm embarrassed!
He's flying!
Welcome in. It's almost time.
All right, everybody, welcome in. We are the Sports Hounds, exclusively on A2D radio.com. Doug Mientkiewicz, Brad Ryer. I'm Rob Brinkman. Hit the damn like, hit the damn subscribe, turn those notifications on. Don't miss a damn thing here on A2D Radio. We're live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram. If you miss anything here on A2D Radio, download us wherever you get your podcasts, Spreaker, Spotify, Google Play, iHeartRadio, and iTunes. A lot to talk about tonight. NBA offseason starting. We have first big splash of the offseason. Bradley Beal goes from the Wizards to the Suns. Everybody chasing those Denver Nuggets, who did take care of the Heat in 5 games. Draft is on Thursday. I don't know if anything else is going to happen, but we'll be talking Sixers. We'll be talking NBA. We'll be talking draft. And we got Doug. Talk some MLB. Talk some Phillies, talk some Yankees. Aaron Judge still remains out. I think it's a good time of the year. I think you can kind of figure out who's going to be around and who's not going to be around for the season. Like Doug, like the Padres. Like everyone keeps expecting the Padres to just take off and start winning a bunch of games, but when is it like you are, like Bill Parcells said, you are what you say you are. You are what your record says you are.
I mean, to me, it's all about, it goes back to who's in your division and what happens to the guys in front of you. You look at the Dodgers, I think last I checked, they're in 3rd place, right? So they don't have any panic in them. They understand they've been doing it for so long. They've been in the running. They've made the playoffs how many years in a row? You take a team like the Diamondbacks, yes, they're in 1st place. They're young, a key injury here, a key hiccup there, and all of a sudden panic sets in, and then the kind of the veteran type teams kind of take over them. So, you keep waiting for these, lack of a better term, like superpowers. Like when you have Soto, Tatis, Machado, you expect them to play and automatically think like, oh my gosh, because they have such great players, you expect to win. It's not how baseball works. It's not the NBA where you can have a big 3 and just kind of, just walk through things. I mean, you look at, the Angels. I mean, they've got arguably the 2 best players in baseball, and they haven't sniffed the playoffs in how long. So, baseball is more of a team-oriented sport, and you're kind of, you're 1 through 35, sometimes 40, that ends up pushing you to the playoffs. So, whenever you have a younger team in front of you, if you're a veteran-laden team, you don't really worry about the team in front of you. You worry about correcting yourself.
All right, we're brought to you by Philly Sports Trips each and every Monday. The Philly 5 for 5 Sports Travel Company, premium travel and tailgating experience for the passionate Philadelphia sports fan. Go to phillysportstrips.com. See what they have to offer. 4 Eagles trips. I think there's some Phillies trips still going. So see our man Vince there at Philly Sports Trips. It's a great time for the passionate Philadelphia sports fan. Also brought to you by Baggio's Breads, located in Mount Laurel, New Jersey, home of the best stuffed breads, tomato pie, sandwiches, cutlets, and meatballs. Mention A2D Radio for 10% off your purchase. So, big bombshell yesterday in the NBA. Doug, I know that you were kind of expecting Pat Riley, after losing the finals, to make a big splash. Bradley Beal was kind of out there to be had. Clearly, was out there to be had because he got traded for an aging Chris Paul that makes a lot of money. I know Bradley Beal, but I don't understand this trade at all from the Wizards standpoint. But Bradley Beal going from the Wizards to the Suns certainly makes that Western Conference way more interesting.
There's better. There you go. I lost
Got
you
it?
guys. Yeah, I lost you. Okay, what did you say?
So Bradley Beal to the, we thought maybe the Heat were going to jump in there. The Celtics were rumored. Our Sixers here in Philadelphia were rumored. He goes to the Suns. So they're going to have Durant and Devin Booker, and we'll see what happens with Ayton with the free agency. But that's a really good team. And you only give up Chris Paul, who isn't Chris Paul anymore. I've never been a fan of Chris Paul because I don't think he has a clutch gene in his body. But your reaction to the trade?
Two things. It questions me about Kevin Durant. He needs a third, if not a fourth, to be significant. You're talking about arguably that's going to go down statistically as probably the top 10, top 15 NBA player of all time. You're right about you're only losing Chris Paul, which I'm right there with you. I agree with you on that. That being said, the one thing I learned through going through the big three in Miami, like you have to have the right rest of pieces because you're going to need depth at some point in time in the NBA. And you have to have the right, not only players, but a lot goes into like the rest, right? The others, the bench guys that are confident enough in their ability to say, okay, I'm willing to take a pay cut to maybe do a little less than what I'm used to doing. And that takes a special kind of makeup for a player to just be like, okay, I know I'm worth more than what I'm getting, but I'm going to sacrifice to be on this team. To me, I don't know much about Bradley Beal. I know he's a superstar. I know he's outstanding. I commend the guy for sticking as long as he has where he was. But I know he's going to be refreshed. I'm sure the rest of the team is, but three guys still isn't enough. I mean, Ray Allen was a great example for the Heat. Ray Allen wasn't part of the big three, but without Ray Allen or Mike Miller and those guys, you don't have a championship. So, it's going to be curious to see what they do with the rest of whatever's left of the money to field the rest of the team. Because, yes, on paper you look like you see four guys making $30+ million that are supposed to be this juggernaut, but like I said, there's more to it than just having three or four great players.
What do you think is going to go on with Ayton, Rob?
I don't see how you can. I mean, I know like there's you can go over the salary cap to re-sign your own. But I mean, Bradley Beal, he makes what? He's a supermax guy. He makes a lot of money. Durant's making a lot of money. Devin Booker's making a lot of money. I don't know how you keep him. I think DeAndre Ayton, I mean, you talk about your Knicks all the time, Brad. They won a center. They won Karl Anthony Towns. I mean, I don't know what your cap situation is, but why not just sign DeAndre Ayton for just
this year they have to make trades. They got
you trade him for two contracts, lower level, lower salary, lower level players, and now it makes sense for everybody.
But Ayton's Ayton's going to want his money. So it's going to be sign and trade because, like James Harden here in Philadelphia, like Ayton and like the incumbent team can pay him the most money.
Correct.
So it's going to have to be a sign and trade. So maybe a sign and trade to New York. DeAndre Ayton's really good.
Don't get me wrong; he's really good, but I don't see how you can have you can't add a fourth to that because now you're like I just think he clogs up what you're trying to do. Yeah, you don't have to pay a guy $35-40 million for, let's just say, rebounds. I look at Chris Bosh of the big three in Miami. He was way better than people gave him credit for as a Heat player. He did less of what he was asked to do in Toronto to be a part of that. And are you sure that he can do there's a lot that goes into that where you want to be a part of it, but yet to have four guys, you change the dynamic of how you're going to do it. There's only one ball. So it takes more than just adding four really great players together to see how it meshes out.
Chris Bosh was also different than DeAndre from a skill standpoint.
More of a perimeter player.
Yeah, DeAndre Ayton, he's your textbook old school center. He's going to post up. He's going to get you 20 points, 10 rebounds, and like you said, he's going to clog up the middle for Durant, Beal, Booker, and all those great guards that they had. That's part of the reason the Sixers can't get past the first round, because Joel Embiid. It's tough, really, 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 really tough to win with a center that needs to post up and have the ball.
The one thing I will say about Bradley Beal is, like, if you look at his numbers, I heard something today where, like, his catch and shoot numbers have gone down dramatically in the last 4 or 5 years because he hasn't had a chance to catch and shoot with open space. And with the team he's on now, he's going to have room to catch and shoot. They made him, almost, lack of a better term, they create his own stuff, create his own space, and created it off the dribble, which he won't have to do anymore. But that's where I just worry about, having a center. Yeah, you want them, but you really need to pay $40 million to basically just, when we do miss, we rebound and kick it back out. So I'm not sure how this all works.
Yeah, I don't really envision a scenario where DeAndre Ayton is on the Suns at the start of next season. I mean, whether it's sign and trade or he walk. I get them.
I mean, Mitch kind of does the same. Mitch is a really good defensive player, though, but he's not a scorer. I mean, he's going to score 10 points and get 10 rebounds and like
today's
4 or 5
NBA
blocks
from your center.
If you're paying, $120 million to 3 players, do you need an extra scorer? You don't. You shouldn't on paper. You need someone to rebound and play defense. That's it.
Well, that's what that's
Correct.
what Mitch Robinson does. He's a 100%. Terrific defensive player, and he's a rim guarder and he's an intimidator underneath. So that's the one thing he can do. He doesn't score a lot.
I don't know
he'll get a
how
rebound.
many.
If he gets a rebound, if he doesn't jam it, he's going to kick it back out again.
Yeah.
I would like to know the insides of, like, how this trade came to be. Maybe the Wizards were just stubborn and didn't want to trade him to anyone in the Eastern Conference. Like, you look at your Heat, Doug. Like, I feel like they could have put a better package together for Bradley Beal. I think the Sixers could have, even though their resources are limited. I think the Knicks could have. So I don't know.
Limited what I read about it with the Heat was that they weren't real keen on getting rid of Tyler Hero. And
that's who they probably wanted then.
And I'm sure I would. I mean, yeah. I'm not a basketball exec, but he's definitely one I would want in a deal like that, just because you're young, you're starting over. He's super young, but he's got experience in the league. He's dynamic. He can do stuff without a lot of help. He
doesn't make a lot of money either.
He's getting up there now. But he's not in the grand scheme of things, no. But yet, if I'm the Heat, that's the one guy. Like, even before this last run, I'd be real hesitant to get rid of, just because, he can do some head scratching stuff, but he puts butts in the seats, and that's at the end of the day, it's a money making league, and he can
upstairs, please.
He can do some things that you can't off script. He can win you games.
Good job.
What the Heat don't have outside of Jimmy Butler, they don't have anybody really off script who can get some things done.
But I guess my question is, what makes Chris Paul?
Oh, really?
I get it. I get it. The Heat.
All right, I got to get back on the show. All right, it's okay.
But the Heat, I don't understand, because the only thing with Chris Paul is the money matches up.
Right. We have a Chris Paul and Kyle Lowry right now. Kyle Lowry's a little different point guard, I think, than Chris Paul is. But I'm with you what you said earlier. I put Chris Paul in I hate to say it, but James Harden book. They don't have a clutch gene in them. When push comes to shove, you just don't see, you just don't see. And that's a hard thing to say, considering James Harden he had D'Antoni, but offensively, he puts numbers up until they matter the most. And then he just kind of, And at the end of the day, no matter, offense wins you games in the regular season. It all comes down to if you can lock somebody down and late in the season, and I just don't see either one of those guys. And they always hurt. Chris Paul's been doing it a long time. Chris Paul's would be a good fit where he ended up. I mean, he's going to be a veteran who kind of teaches the younger guys what it takes to be an NBA guy, and let him play out his career. And that's no disrespect to him, because he's had a marvelous career. But to me, if you're trying to win a championship, Chris Paul's never shown me that he can do that.
I don't know. I wish the Sixers got involved. Send them Tobias Harris, expiring contract. He's way better than Chris Paul at this point in his career. We get on Tobias Harris here in Philadelphia because he makes $37 million and he's not the guy. And it's frustrating when he disappears in the playoffs. But if I'm the Wizards, wouldn't I rather have Chris Paul or Tobias Harris and then just dump him at the end of the year or trade him elsewhere? I don't understand how Chris Paul gets this deal done for Bradley Beal. Is what I'm getting at. I don't get it.
Think it's more of a money. Yeah.
Landry Shamet, Chris Paul, and picks.
And second rounders, I thought, is what it was, right?
Yeah.
NBA second rounders were,
yeah, you get one every now and then.
Wasn't Jokic just second rounder?
Yes.
Jokic was a second rounder. Dennis Rodman was a second rounder. And
I feel like more and more today's, with so much analytics and so much video and so much exposure, that like you're not. It's like Jokic isn't that old, but like the days of sneaking that magical, guy in the second round of the NBA draft. I feel like I'm not an NBA expert, but I feel like there's more first round busts in the NBA than any other sport outside of baseball, which they don't have a minor leagues. But I just think, like, I don't know. Picks. The Miami Heat have proven that picks don't matter if you have the right people involved and the right plan involved. I feel like the Heat have had 3 draft picks in the last 12 years, and they still end up finding a way to find guys who can flat out play.
Yeah, they get guys off the street. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. System. It's all about system. It's a system, and that was my argument in baseball for years. Coming back as a coach was like, okay, like, what's our system? Like, what do we want? Do we want power? Do we want the high on base? Do we want flat out guys who know the strike zone? Do we want guys who can just hit? And that was my argument, because like a lot of teams just draft the best player available, which isn't wrong either. But if he doesn't fit into your system, then why? Like, it's going to be a hard thing to teach. It's hard to teach to the masses, and the masses, like, you got to have a philosophy. You got to have something you believe in. You got to have some kind of arms, pitching. Do you want power arms, and we'll figure out the command later, or do we want polished college guys early in the draft who already know how to pitch and already are more, because the high school kids are more of a risk, right? And that makes sense. But like I always said this, offensively, we need to draft guys who will fit into what we are preaching and what we are teaching, more so than just the guys who are, let's say, the best available.
Is there, because you got this guy at the draft, the NBA draft, Victor Wembanyama. It's from France. He's supposed to be the next greatest thing. Like, when do you go talent over the system that you were talking about?
It all depends on
if you have this system and you never follow it.
Correct. That's the problem.
The point?
Is that guys switch midstream, and then you're totally screwed, because now you're swimming upstream for how long? I think your system works when you give it time, and that comes from stability. Like the Heat, I always keep going back to it, but Spoelstra's been there forever, right? Even before he was the head coach. They have a system they believe in, and they keep finding the right players to plug and play. I guarantee if you take guys out of that system, you don't see the same productivity you do in some other system. Just the way it is. Doesn't mean they're not great players, because they could be. But you see it all the time in football, right? He's not like, this system doesn't match him. But they go somewhere else, they become all pro. And to me, that's the hardest thing to draft in a professional sport, is especially baseball, because there's so many picks and whatever. But you have to me, it's like, if you stick with your system, and if your system's solid at the top, you give your system time to develop the way they want to be developed. That way, when they get to the point to where they can help the top team, the big league team, or the NBA team, or the NFL team, they're plug and play, and you just plug them in, and success keeps happening.
But then if the system doesn't work, Doug, then everyone gets fired, and then you have a whole new system.
Correct.
And then you might have a bunch of players who are worthless to the new system.
Correct. You see the Detroit Lions. You see the Miami Dolphins for years, right? Like you keep shuffling the deck, and all of a sudden this head coach doesn't like this style. All of a sudden you flush. And baseball, it goes on and on and on. That's the one thing about there's the fine line. I'm a diehard Dolphins fan. I've watched it for decades. They keep switching the GM and they switch the head coach, and then all of a sudden now you're like, all you're doing is running in place because you never quite get the players you think the system will work in, and there is no system because they're just drafting guys, and next thing you know, by the time they're great, they move them into someone else and they become Wes Welker. We found a Wes Welker late in the draft, and he became the best slot receiver in football, and then all of a sudden we give him the Patriots, and Tom Brady goes off with him, and he leading the league in receptions and X amount of touchdowns and Super Bowls. So to me, it's like everybody's so quick to, hey, this guy isn't working. But at the same token, you have to that other voice has to be like, well, hang on, if we start over, we're really setting ourselves back.
All right, let's get to our poll question. Our poll question is brought to you by Creative Window Design, serving Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, Florida, fully authorized Hunter Douglas dealer. Contact Jeff 609-226-0391. Start our NBA talk. We'll talk from Philly. We'll work our way out. We'll touch on the Knicks, the Celtics, the champion Nuggets, all that. But the Sixers will make a splash trade. Obviously, Brad, this is a team that just needs – the system has failed. The system is not working. I don't even know what the system is. I don't like the GM. Something's got to give. I thought a potential Bradley Beal for Tobias Harris swap would have been really good for the Sixers. Obviously, it didn't happen. I just don't see where this team can make a big splash. And
there's a difference between, I used to argue this with the Twins all the time. To me, the Sixers are a team that are built to win regular season games. They're not built to win when they count the most. But they're relying so much on two or three people, and that's just not the way it works. Some organizations are just happy getting in. And on one hand, that's not a bad option because every chance you get in, you get a couple breaks and you never know. But I would fight that with the Twins all the time. Do you want to be good and just get in, or do you want to pin your ears back once or twice in 10 years to think, okay, this squad, if I go out and make the right moves, I give myself a chance to win the entire thing and bring the whole thing home. That's the web. That's like the tangled web we weave in professional sports. It's like there's ways to be really good and win regular season games, and then there's a way to build a team that regardless of who they play, they can match up. I keep going back to the Heat. It sounds like a broken record, but the Heat aren't necessarily built to win regular season games. They win enough because they're deep, right? They're deep. They play defense, but defense isn't really something that shows up every night in the regular season because of energy and whatever, for whatever reason. But when they got in the postseason, they're a prime example. It's the only reason why an 8 seed makes it to the NBA Finals is because they weren't built to just outscore people to get there. Look at, we talk about the Rockets back in the day when they had James Harden in his prime, right? They scored 140 points a game, but Is
that me? Did we lose Doug?
If they're not making shots, they're not going to win. And that goes for most teams, but you're not going to score 140 points in an NBA playoff game. So that's kind of where I look at, the philosophy, something's got to change for them to win. I just don't think, again, it goes back to, I don't think Embiid, MVP, it's hard to argue with an MVP candidate, but MVP winner, but I just don't see, to me, I see a lot of excuses and a lot of blame going on to other people instead of when push comes to shove and you're the MVP, it's on me, 100%. I'll carry us, I'll win it.
So the Philadelphia fans, they're passionate, they're rough, they're fed up with this team. At least I am fed up with this team, always coming up short. So you change the coach. Everyone wants to say, okay, we got a new coach now. Okay, so we got a new system. Like, is he going to fit around Joe? But I don't know. I think the NBA is the most talent-driven league out there. Like, if you don't have players, it doesn't matter who the coach is. Phil Jackson. I mean, look at Phil Jackson. He had Shaq and Kobe, and he had Jordan and Pippen. Of course, he was the greatest coach of all time. Like, not to diminish what he did, because you still got to go out there and do it, but it's a lot easier, especially in basketball, with the right guys. So everyone here is excited about Nick Nurse because he's a new coach and he's not Doc Rivers, and everyone hated Doc. But Nick Nurse doesn't play two guard. This team doesn't have a two guard. I thought if you traded for Bradley Beal and you have Maxey, Bradley Beal, and Embiid, that's at least new. That's at least fresh. So what am I supposed to do? They're going to bring back Harden because it makes sense. They're boxed in. There's nothing else they can do but bring back Harden. You're going to have Tobias here because no one's going to trade for Tobias because he makes way too much money, even though he's an expiring contract. And Joe, we'll go through the whole regular season with Joe, and it'll look great, and he'll score 30 points, 40 points, and then hurt, out of shape, some reason or another. He won't be at his best when the Sixers need him. So am I supposed to be excited as a fan just because we got Nick Nurse instead of Doc Rivers with relatively the same person? We're just going to run it back? I don't know. This is where I need Daryl Morey to get creative and do something. I don't know who else is going to be out there because you have no picks. You traded them all to get James Harden. So you kind of have to bring back James Harden because you traded all your picks for him. So that's kind of contradictory to building a team if you let James Harden walk to Houston and don't have any draft picks. Like, can you trade for Dame Lillard? I don't know.
He's the only option I see other than that. I mean, I look at bringing someone like a Beal, those guys. It might bring an energy that they're not used to seeing, and that like might inject something where it's a little bit of life. You're right. There's so many things like organizations. I said this on Twitter today. I was like, organizations, if they would just admit sooner that they were wrong and move on from their mistakes instead of waiting and hanging on for them to look right, instead of doing the right thing, a lot of franchises wouldn't spend so many years in mud and in slow-mo and like they're running in place.
Like, you remember Josh Rosen, the quarterback out of UCLA?
Yeah.
The Cardinals took him 10th overall. They figured out he stunk. They move on from him next to the offseason. More teams need to do that. I mean, not that the Cardinals capitalized on it because they're the Cardinals, but they had a chance to get Kyler Murray, and they did that. Just it's so frustrating being a Sixers fan. Like, I just don't. I get it. No, because Doug, they lost all these games on purpose. Now Doug's going to get the full wrath of my process hating scam Sixers nonsense. They lost all these games in a row, telling me, like, just threw away seasons. Like you're playing Xbox, you just click the button and you go to the next season. And they told us that that's the only way. That's the only way you can do it. That's the only way we can win. Okay, but then you make bad decision after bad decision, because that's what people. And it's perfect that you said that, because Sam Hinkie, I call him Scam Hinkie, he had no clue. Like he had no system. Like you just said, he was just grabbing guys. He drafted 3 centers in a row in a game, a modern NBA that doesn't even emphasize the center. We have the best center
that's banishing centers.
I mean, like, we have the best center in the league, but like it's an obsolete position. And yeah, he's really good, but he gets hurt, and then you pass on Tatum. So, Doug, basically, this is the same position. The Sixers are in the same position now as when they blew it up and started the process.
Correct.
Had Drew Holiday, had Andre Iguodala, they had the Bynum thing that just blew up in their face because he didn't work hard and he got hurt. He just kind of folded up. So, like, they tried, but they were mired in this, I can't get out of the second round. Let's blow this thing up. That's the only way we can win in this league. And then you do it, and 10 years later, you still can't get out of the second round.
Knowing what I've seen from Jimmy Butler and the consummate teammate that he has shown down here in Miami, this is the question I have. You see how he brings everybody else, and all you heard guys talk about is how he raised everybody else's game. But he was in Philly. And granted, I get the whole last shot changed everything, right? The guy, it bounced around and went in for Toronto. History could be different.
Leonard.
Right,
yeah.
Could be different. But that being said, like, you were that close to winning an NBA championship and you got rid of him. Is it because his personality and his will to win doesn't match Embiid's? Like,
Jimmy, no. I mean, him and Ben Simmons, the kitty cat, Ben Simmons, that
correct.
wasn't.
But it takes more than one. It takes more than one to have that happen. That's my point. Like, that's where I go back to. You took the people running your show took the side of Ben Simmons over Jimmy Butler. And if you look at the two, it's not even comparable. And that's where you go into the line of, look, I've lived it as a Dolphin fan. Name the last head coach the Dolphins have had that's had experience being a head coach. Think about that for a second.
Oh, it can't be Shula?
It's Jimmy Johnson.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Dave Wannstedt. Dave Wannstedt got it because he's Jimmy's friend. Okay, and I was a diehard Dave Wannstedt fan. I was. But I mean, look, Joe Philbin, Soprano, all the list goes on and on. There's a reason why even the guy they got rid of last time before they got, the chic Gabe Kapler of the NFL. Like it's like he was fine. The guy from the Patriots. Again, here's a great example. You brought a guy in to toughen up your organization, and he did that. But you got rid of him because he was too tough. Like, you can't have it both ways. And that's where it goes back to, like, these teams that are always in flux, right? They're always philosophy, player, personnel, who runs. Does the inmates run the asylum? Do the players have more say than the people making the decisions, or vice versa? And that's where pro sports is really super tough, because you have an organization. I've seen guys in pro ball and baseball where they will refuse to admit they made a mistake to keep 6 or 7 to 10, 12 guys keep their job because they're close to retirement. Or there's 2 guys in a baseball draft where the college guy is would help our organization a lot longer than the high school kid. But they take the high school kid because it takes him longer to develop, right? So you're giving the scouts, some front office guys, 4 to 6 more years of leeway to keep their job. And that's the crazy part about sports that that people forget, and that it's the honest to God truth. And it changes franchise history over time with decisions like that.
Sounds like you were talking about Brian Cashman, Doug.
No, that wasn't Cash. Cash is one of the. I know you have a problem with him, and I understand why. But Cash has been one of the best ones.
I have more than one problem with him. I can go on and on, and I will later in the show, because he is the problem right now.
Doug, you played in Minnesota, you played in Boston, you played in New York. Is it the system that you talk about a little earlier in the show? How different is it from, like, a small market Minnesota to a big monster rivalry between, the Red Sox and the Yankees?
Well, the one thing I do know is that I have heard this from big market clubs, that we try to win once every 3 years. And man, that's like, and then you have small market teams that are just refuse to give up, like the Twins. We refuse to give up prospects, right? Because that's how they live. That's how they live, by turnover. When the next guy's ready, you move the guy that's in the big leagues. But then you also have teams that always try to pin their ears back and go for it. They might try to hit lightning in a bottle. I go back to the White Sox back in the day. I remember And the Twins, like 2002, 2003, they would like the White Sox would go get Robbie Alomar Sr., Jr., Carl Everett, Kenny Lofton. I'm leaving a few guys out, but like you're like, that's great if this trade was in 1994, but like it's 2003. Like they don't scare us anymore. We feel like we're on the same playing field. Tremendous players and had tremendous careers that were way better than ours because they had longevity. But as far as making them a better team, we were like, that doesn't faze us. Like we're still better than you.
All right, Brad, do you have anything on the NBA trade? Bradley Beal, Sixers, Knicks?
Well, I'm a little disappointed, but you know what? I'm thinking about the $50 million that he makes. Okay, and I don't know. I mean, it's kind of like the same thing with the guy on the guy that got traded to the Cavaliers. Okay, it's the same kind of thing, Rob. It's too much money, and is he the one that's going to bring them to the next level? I mean, no knock against Bradley Beal, but here's a guy that plays 60 games a season. He's always getting hurt too. I mean, is it really worth it to blow it all and try to get him and win a championship? I don't know if he can do it.
I mean, no. Do I think the Suns are better than the Nuggets? No, I don't think so at all. I don't know. I thought it was a missed opportunity. I thought it was a missed opportunity from the Sixers to move a guy like Tobias Harris for a guy who the Sixers need a two guard. The Sixers need a two guard because Tyrese Maxey can't cover two guards. He's not strong enough. He's just not. Like Tyrese Maxey can't cover Jimmy Butler. Tyrese Maxey can't cover Jason Tatum.
Who really can though?
Physically.
Who really can cover those guys?
I get it because
you don't want to be you want a guy who's good enough that they won't get embarrassed by them.
What I don't understand in any sport is defense. To me, is just will. If you just have a will to get better as a defender, like it's just a will to keep the guy in front of you. I mean, like to fight through screens, and I get it. Size in the NBA, you saw it. That's what makes the Celtics so tough is they're all lengthy, right? Same with Denver. They had big boys who could cover regardless. Jimmy Butler was being guarded by 6'10" guys. And that's where the difference in today's NBA player in the past is the fact that, like, there's some big dudes still, Bam Adebayo brings the ball up the floor sometimes. And he can switch and guard a guard. And but to me, a defender is all about will. You either want to get better. Everybody wants to score, right? Because people get paid to score. But the will to be a good defender is just a matter of what's inside. And I think that's where the makeup comes into. Whereas I feel like if you have the will to get better and to be that guy, a better defender, it just takes work and coaching, honestly.
And honestly, if you have will, like if Jason Tatum or Jimmy Butler, if they're cooking and they're going off, there's not really anything you can do. Correct.
And you can live with one guy scoring. You can live with that. You better lock down the other guys.
No, that's what I'm saying about Maxey. I mean, as long as he's competitive, I mean, fine. He makes it up because he scores a lot of points. He's not a minus player when he goes out there. I mean, I'm not sure what his plus minus is or was in the playoffs, but do they keep at that kind of number in football, in basketball, the way they do in hockey?
Yeah, they keep it. I'm sure we can look at it. It's probably not good because he's playing next to Harden. The other guard's Harden. He's not covering anybody.
Correct.
He just watches the ball leave the guy's hands and go through the hoop. I mean, that's his idea of a closeout.
And that's where I think Harden has sucked the life out of Embiid. I'm a 76ers observer from afar, and I see the same mentality in Harden as I do Embiid. I don't see that I'm going to lock you down, and I don't care what happens tonight. I don't care if I score 4 points. I'm going to rebound the ball. I'm going to get 30 rebounds and shut down my opponent. I just see the same kind of I see excuse makers. Embiid, right? It's just I can only do so much. We can only do so much. Well, you're the MVP of the league. You should take over. You should win at least one game of a 7-game series by yourself. Period. End of story. If not more than one. And I just don't see that in him. I see a lot of excuses.
Yeah, you see guys like LeBron, Kobe, Jordan, back in the day. If it was a close game, they demanded the ball.
Correct.
And if you didn't give them the ball, they'd literally walk up to you and take it away from you, and get the ball. They were not going to have it.
I remember reading a ton of things on Kobe. He was always like, "I know the work I've put in."
Yeah.
So I've earned the right.
Give me the damn ball.
Give me the ball and get the hell out of the way. Larry Bird, writing a play up. Give me the ball and get the hell out of the way. I got it. Like that's right or wrong, good or bad. Like the thing is, everybody on their team believed that. So it was like, when Kobe put the work in, Kobe takes the shot, and you live and die with it. And that's and you're going to live more than you die. And that's what I don't see.
When Kobe had Shaq on the team, if everybody was out guarding Kobe, he'd just throw the ball inside, and Shaq would slam it.
Mm-hmm.
And vice versa. And that's what made it almost impossible.
And that's why the game went from a 2-man game to a 3-man game, because there aren't any Shaqs. There's not too many of those guys who could just, right? He's an athletic freak. I mean, he could do some things that like most 5'8" guys can do. So like that's why the game has gone from a 2-man game to a 3-man game. And now you're seeing, hopefully, if not Philly, but if Phoenix has it, it'll be a 4-man game if they can keep everybody. We'll see. But 3 is good enough. And I think 3 makes sense in today's game. You need at least, because 2 is just not enough. There's too many other. I feel like everybody wants to make the argument about Kobe and Michael and LeBron. It goes beyond that. I think the perimeter shooting of the majority of the other guys are better than the way it used to be. Those guys can flat out shoot and they can play some defense.
Yeah, but also Michael had Steve Kerr to throw the ball out.
They always had they had a deadly, Paxton, right?
Yeah, the later Paxton,
open catch and shoot guys, right? And
that's kind of what I mean. I know my Knicks. That's what's kind of missing with them. They do have Quickly, but I mean, Quickly plays probably 25 minutes a game. He kind of splits it with Grimes right now. So
everybody had. You look at those Bulls teams. Everybody had their own role. It was like, okay, well, if they leave Steve Kerr open or Paxton, good, bad, or indifferent, on or off, you leave those guys open, you feel pretty good of it going in the hole. Yeah. And that's where I don't say. Once you look at Philly, it's like, where's that guy? Where's that? I don't see that.
Well, they had. I mean, the Bulls had functional centers.
Correct.
Okay, Bill Cartwright was very functional. Okay, not a star, but functional. And he would when he knew Michael wanted the ball and he was going to go down the lane, he'd just get out of the way, and nobody was going to stop him. And if you stop him, he's going to the line. Yeah, and Grant too. And Bill Wennington was the other center. Mm-hmm. And he'd get out of the way. And the only time they were in there was to get rebounds and maybe
either I miss.
Yeah.
Either if I miss.
Maybe that's. I mean, I know that's where the NBA has been going lately, but Embiid is a great athlete. He just has to want it more.
No doubt. No doubt.
He has to. He doesn't have that killer instinct the way Jordan did and the way Kobe Bryant did, and even LeBron when he just decided he was gonna take the ball to the bucket and nobody was gonna stop him. And if you got in his way, you may never walk again.
That's the difference. You're right. That's the difference I see in like when they always compare Jordan, LeBron and Kobe, where Kobe and Michael always had that I'm going to eat you. I'm going to destroy my opponent. And LeBron had to have it provoked. LeBron would have games where he settled for jumpers, and then like you'd see him taking the ball to the hole from the first quarter.
When he got mad, When he got mad, he would do it. But
it didn't take anybody getting mad when Michael and Kobe had. They were like, "This is my game. I want to take over, and this is all." And I see the same thing in Embiid. Like I'm not a 76ers fan, but I see from afar. I see someone who's passive. I don't see someone who's aggressive. I see someone quickly who's going to make a mistake. Pass, blame. It's not my fault. To me, he's the 21st century superstar for the most part. I mean this with all due respect. They want all the accolades of a Michael Jordan, but they don't want any of the flack. They want to be praised. They don't want to be held accountable for when they don't play well. They want all the praise, but they're quick to make excuses when it doesn't go their way. And that to me, championships are tough to build around guys like that.
Would you trade? Would you entertain trading Joel Embiid?
If you truly believe, I'm not in the building again. This is just from afar, and I'm a nobody when it comes to this stuff. But that's what I see. But you keep changing coaches, so obviously you're sticking with the player. You're not sticking with the coach. You're sticking with the player. You're trying to find a coach who can get more out of him. And how many coaches is this now? Who's trying to get more out of a guy who can get them out of the second round? And that's my argument with Kevin Durant. It always takes somebody else. It always takes one other guy.
And he's always hurt too, by the way.
Correct. But the Thunder team he was on, that team should have wrong time of that Thunder team being together, right?
Right. Like, they were just too young.
Correct. But you leave that team together if they're in somewhere else where they can keep those guys together. You look at that team.
Oh my God.
6 years ago, 5 years ago, every team was trying to be them, and just because of the surrounding teams that were built around them, they didn't win a championship. But damn, you're looking at those three dudes together in their prime, and they had some complementary pieces that are overshadowed too. Adams, they had some dude. That team should have won a championship. But now
Serge
you
Ibaka.
see, well, maybe not.
Yeah, Ibaka too. You forgot about him.
But anyway, getting back to Embiid, so am I, Brad, as a Sixers fan, am I just supposed to believe that Nick Nurse is going to turn Joel Embiid into this killer, into this Michael Jordan, give me the damn ball, I want to get two mentality, something that he hasn't been his entire career?
Well, I mean, he did it with Kawhi. I mean, Kawhi
was a killer. Kawhi was a killer. I mean, Kawhi's a weird cat. Don't get me wrong.
He was bizarre, but I don't know, but he was able to get the best out of Kawhi, and not everybody's been able to do that.
Kawhi won championships with Popovich in San Antonio.
Yeah, but it wasn't just him. He had a lot of.
I mean, okay, but. Now the Sixers got this core of guys that haven't won championships anywhere.
Well, I think they need to bring in
Nick Nurse is going to change that.
Well, I think they need to bring in. I think they have to get Nick Nurse to bring in his kind of player. You know what I'm saying?
But Brad, they have no cap. They have all these guys. They're locked into Harden. They're locked into Tobias. They're locked into Embiid. They can't go anywhere. That's why this Bradley Beal thing is so frustrating. You could have shuffled the deck as best as you could with bringing in Bradley Beal, and you go Maxey, you go Beal, and you go Embiid. Now you need guys like D'Anthony Melton and PJ Tucker to keep doing their thing, but then Max is your point guard, which is what he should be. I just don't know where this team.
Maybe what it's
they just box themselves in by being stupid and drafting center after center after center, and just having this lame duck head coach in Brett Brown, who was never going to get fired because he was fine cashing a paycheck, losing 70 games a year, and he wouldn't rock the boat, and he liked with the young kids and the undrafted people that he got in, and now you're in the same freaking position you were when the process started.
And that's where it takes an organization with, I hate to say it, that's a 4-letter word that starts with B, and yeah, and it's you got to have those because you have to have enough wherewithal to be like, okay, it's not working. We tried it. Let's blow it up. But the NBA is not like that, though. It's not like – I just don't feel like you don't have – how many teams in the NBA have always said they're rebuilding? Wizards. They're nothing but rebuilding.
Constantly.
And they had 2 studs, right? And like it's a never-ending process, a never-ending saga. Like, when's the last team in the NBA said they were rebuilding and became something? I mean, like,
no, it's the teams that get. Look, you're either Miami, where guys really want to come play there because there's a lot going on, and the taxes, or Dallas. They seem to do a pretty good job of getting guys to come there. The Lakers, Celtics. You got those Northeast nostalgia teams, or you get a team like the Cavaliers in 2003 that just win the draft lottery and they get LeBron James.
Right. Or you even say the Celtics. Okay, like they've been consistent for how long? Right, 7 years with that group. But like, would you not expect more than what they've done in the last 5 or 7 years? And that's hard to. It's hard to argue.
It's hard to believe that they haven't won a championship.
What they went to the finals once, right?
Once.
Right. Since they had Garnett and Pierce.
Right. And you're like, damn, but they've been to the Eastern Conference Finals how many years? 5 out of 7 or something? Whatever it is, I don't know the number.
Yeah, they can't seem to get over the hump.
But it's like,
but there's a huge difference for me as a fan that to losing in the Eastern Conference Finals as opposed to the second round of the playoffs.
Why?
Like we had the Eagles with Andy. Maybe it's just like you're one step away.
You're still going home.
You're still going home, but I mean.
Okay, I'll ask you this question. Okay, are you more would you be more frustrated as a 76er fan losing in the second round, or have the Celtics 8 to 10 players they have and not winning a championship? What would frustrate you more?
I know.
I don't know, because I would be really frustrated if I was a Celtics fan.
I'd be livid.
Livid.
Yeah, if it was me, I'd be more upset about not.
But I don't think their coach. I don't think their coach is any good. So
Which
if
one?
The Celtics,
which one, Stevens, or the old guy that got caught with the girl,
Stevens,
or
I
this
thought
guy
was
now?
good, but I don't.
He was good, but good doesn't cut it. I don't think good cuts it. But like I see a bunch of individuals that they don't make shots, they pout. Like everybody,
that's the whole league,
right? But correct. But like everybody, like again, we marvel at
your team doesn't really do that though. Your
correct.
team is a relentless defensive team.
We marvel at Jason Tatum, and everybody says, "Oh well, he hurt his ankle the first play of the offense." How many? That's the one thing I love about, and I don't say this because I'm from Miami, or I live in Miami, or I'm close to Miami. They don't make excuses. Like, there's a reason for that. Like, you didn't hear the Heat complain about losing 2 of their guards in the first round of the playoffs. But yet, Jason Tatum semi-rolls his ankle in Game 7. It's like, see, we lost because Jason Tatum rolled his ankle. By the way, still without Jason Tatum, 2 through 11, you're still better than the Heat at home, and you got blown out. So, like, Jason Tatum, to me, is on the same playing field as Embiid. They both have MVP talent, but when push comes to shove, they disappear for quarters on end. Jason Tatum's the biggest superstar who just disappears when they need him the most. He'll dominate a quarter, and you won't hear from him again until after they've gone to Charles Barkley, and we've seen 3 Corona commercials with Snoop and Eli, and then all of a sudden the fourth quarter, and you find out, oh, wow, Mark Jackson says, oh, Jason Tatum just scored his first field goal, and there's 4 minutes into the fourth quarter. Am I right or am I wrong? Is that not how it always ends up?
You're right.
And it's just like, again, you're arguing hero amount of talk. I was never anywhere close to these guys, but yet we keep giving these guys accolades. And like, what have you done when it matters? With the talent you have, you should be closing out games. Yes, you had a phenomenal game in Game 7 of the second round. You know who remembers the second round? The fans of the team that lost in the second round. No one cares about the second round after you get past it. They don't care anymore. Like Heat fans, we're frustrated we didn't win a championship. Panther fans, we're frustrated we lost. The ride through it is wonderful and memorable. But at the end of the day, you lost. And that's the difference between championship organizations and organizations that are just happy to be along for the ride.
So it sounds like your mentality as a player was championship or bust.
It depends on where we were. It depends on where we were. When I played for the Yankees, yeah, we knew it was either win it all or the complementary pieces like myself were flushed and start over. When all I wanted was a second crack at it because I felt like I got hurt. I wanted a second crack because I felt like I had a great chance of winning the championship with the group I was on. Now you go to Minnesota in 2002, and the first time you make the playoffs in 11 years, but at the end of the day, I don't pat myself on the back for beating the Oakland A's in 2002. I'm pissed we lost to the Anaheim Angels, who end up winning the World Series, because I really truly feel like in this day and age, with the same group, you ask any team I played with, no disrespect for the Angels, we matched up really well with them. And
you guys had a real good team that year.
And we went to San Francisco early that year and won 2 out of 3 in San Fran. So, like, in my eyes, as a prime example, it was the first time we ever blinked and thought, holy shit, there's a chance we win the whole thing. And then the rally monkey got us and demoralized us and demolished us. But the point is, depends on where you are. But I think if you're in a big market, there's no solace for just getting in. You're in Philly, New York, Boston. They don't care if you get to the ALCS. You better win the damn thing. And that's the way big markets should feel.
So my bright idea with the Sixers, because I'm sick of it, I don't see how Nick Nurse is just going to turn this into a team that's going to be in the Eastern Conference Finals or win a championship, is a guard on Memphis, John Morant. He's having some issues. I think I'm willing to turn it. I think he's just young and being a little stupid. I think he's a terrific player. He's all effort. I think he would fit really good in the Northeast corner. Embiid, everyone rips me for this too. Embiid for Morant. Let's go. Give me
quiet.
Me and Maxey. I give Morant, Maxey, and obviously I would have liked to have Bradley Beal instead of Tobias Harris. And then I just figure it out at center. Because Bam Adebayo is the perfect big guy for today's NBA.
He's a power forward. He's not a center. Right?
Right.
He's a big guy.
Shoot. He can bring it up. Like, I don't want Embiid shooting threes. He can. I don't want Embiid bringing the ball up. Bam can do that. So you can get me.
But
I don't know. I'm grasping at straws here with the Sixers. I want to see him do well.
I will say
really
this.
Not going to happen with this core.
It's not, and this is where it's never been harder to be an executive, I think, in any sport, because like everything's known, right? You got social media, you have media. You can't say anything behind closed doors that doesn't get out. And no offense, today's players are very fragile compared to the ones in the past, on average. Not everyone, but in general, right? So like, it's not like it was 10, 20 years ago where you can go ahead and make a phone call to every executive. Joel Embiid's on the trading block. What are you willing to give me? Right? And have that stay behind just between you two and phone calls. And then you see, like, okay, you get the power to be in their room and say, these are the offers we got. What do you think? Whereas you can't do that anymore because somehow, some way, some intern that's back there who just out of college will tweet it out somewhere. And then next thing you know, you have an attitude problem on your club. I'm not using him personally, but it's an example. Like, that's the problem now. Whereas in the past, you could go ahead and make those phone calls and see. And I'm sure they still do, but only select people. But that's how, like, you just figure out. I mean, the stuff behind closed doors, the stuff behind those phone calls. When I heard about them in baseball, when I heard about some of the trades that could have went down, I can think back to, off the top of my head, Dodgers, Yankees, Robinson Cano for Ethier and Kemp. Like, think about that for a second. Like all three of those guys are probably the best. One of the top. They're in the top 8 players of their generation in that regard, hitting wise. Yeah, like, you start talking about, damn. Like, when you hear those things, and that's just 1% of what. I'm like, goodness gracious. Like, who doesn't pull the trigger on that? So like those are the stories that have to happen, that go behind closed doors, that none of us really know what happens. But to me, that's the difference between being an executive and being a championship executive. You got to make, like, Pat Riley doesn't care who you are. He's trying to make his club better regardless of whose feelings are hurt or who, whatever. I'm going to find what I need to find to make my club better.
Did you hear stuff like in the locker room, the scuttlebutt that didn't make it to like ESPN?
Oh yeah. Tons of it. And like, because even when I played before, like that's right when the internet first came out, and it was
right.
There's message boards, and you heard about, well, this is happening. I know when I was getting traded from the Twins in 2004, I heard all kind of Pittsburgh, Chris Benson, this, that, and you're like, man, like I can't imagine. I know dealing with it as a manager in the last 10 years, like you hear, like when you try to call a player up or down or released, the social media world already has it. So like you're calling a player in, it didn't really matter so much in A-ball and AA, but when you're calling a kid up to the big leagues, like you want it to be, as a AAA manager or AA manager, it's part of your job to make it memorable, right? This is a moment they've lived their whole life for. So it's not just a call, hey, come on in, Brad, sit down, you're going to Toronto tomorrow. You've got to make it magical. You've got to make it. But the problem is these kids walk in, they already have a smile on their face going, I already know. And you're like, well, damn, like I spent all night trying to think of something creative to say to get you. And like, but that's the world we live in. The information that gets out, and not all of it's truthful, but a lot of it is, and the magical how the walls can hear now. And that's where we are in today's society.
Guys, I just got a note from ESPN that both DeAndre Hopkins and Dalvin Cook want a package deal together.
Miami.
Can you spell Miami?
Dalvin Cook, man, he's 305.
Does that work? Dalvin Cook.
I don't need
Dalvin
DeAndre
Cook's
Hopkins.
A really good player.
Dalvin Cook and DeAndre Hopkins.
I don't need DeAndre Hopkins.
They want to go together to a team.
If they take a pay cut, come on.
They might. They're veterans. They've got plenty of money at this point, I would think.
I'm telling you, Dalvin and 305 is huge for us.
It wouldn't hurt you to. I mean, not that you necessarily need DeAndre, but boy, DeAndre and Hill. Oh my God.
And you have
you
Waddle.
Put Waddle in the slot. Waddle in the slot instead of on the outside. But
if now, I don't know. I mean, I think ESPN is pretty reputable. I have the app, and they just sent me that note, and I just wanted to bring it up to you guys because it's kind of fresh meat there. That would be just sick.
Please. I really need a good fall. Like, I really need a good fall. Like, you guys had it last year with your Eagles getting the Super Bowl. Like, I don't want to.
The Giants had a pretty good fall until they had to go play the Eagles, and then it ended pretty abruptly.
Better than normal. But I have a quarterback that, if you sneeze on his helmet, he has a concussion. So like we need someone who can. But it just so happens I'm a Dolphins fan, and now all of a sudden everybody else in the AFC East is really good.
I think you spent too much time in the Bronx making a comment. Making a comment like that. That's a Bronx comment, Doug.
Now it's like, yeah, that's once you play there, it never leaves you.
No.
So.
I mean, Buffalo, Kansas City, that's got to be on the short list there for those two.
Yeah, but how could those two teams don't have any cap space.
Well, guess what? If that's what they want to do, they want to get together and go somewhere together. Like,
what about the Jets?
Full quote.
As much as it pains me to say that, what about the Jets?
Yeah, they do have the cap space.
They have cap space.
Yeah, they do, but they do have a very good running back.
Yes, they do. And I mean, the Dolphins don't necessarily they did a great job with the running backs they had last year, but you add Dalvin Cook to I'm a diehard Seminole, and he was it was like playing a video. It was like Herschel Walker back in Techno Bowl days.
Dalvin Cook is on another it's a
whole other level.
Atmosphere.
It's a different gear.
So is Hopkins, though. I mean, my God.
Yes, and that's the thing too. Is like NFL, we quick to give up on guys because they're older, and it's like, hang on a second, he can still flat out play. Like that's what I always said about the NFL, which I always felt bad for the guys that played in that league, because it's like, if you don't do well, they release you, and if you do too well, they cut you. So you hope to be mediocre. If you make too much money, they cut you for cap space. And if you aren't good enough, you don't make enough money, they release you anyway. So it's like just be a little bit of tick above average and give them a taste once in a while and hope you're in the right place at the right time.
All right, let's get to some comments. Comments tonight brought to you by Alan Foy, eXp Realty. Looking for a change or career on brokerage? Contact Alan Foy of eXp Realty. Visit him right there. There's his phone number. There's his website. Some comments. A lot of Sixers talk so far. We're about to get into baseball. Some NFL news with Hopkins and Dalvin Cook trying to team up maybe. So it's got to be – you got to think they're going to look to be on a winner. Like, they're not going to the Cardinals. Yeah, they're not going to the – I don't know, like the Bills, the Chiefs.
No.
Jets? Yeah.
Jets, like Titans. Offensive line.
That's not bad. That's interesting with the Titans. I don't understand that. They traded A.J. Brown to the Eagles out of nowhere, and then you're just going to give DeAndre Hopkins a contract?
What are you going to do with Henry?
You were wrong. Give him the ball probably every play next year. That's really their only hope.
I don't know.
You could put them both in the backfield at the same time, and then
you could.
Yeah, and one of them could play fullback, and then
I'm not against. I think Dalvin Cook can play the slot too once in a while too.
Can you imagine putting them in the same backfield?
Correct.
I suppose Henry was the fullback, and he was gonna block a few times.
I was just thinking about offensive line. I forgot. I totally blew it on Derrick Henry, but I was like thinking about offensive line wise. Like I would think Dalvin Cook at some point would want to go. He's done. I watched him play for 4 years at Florida State with not a lot of offensive blocking, and he wreaked havoc. I'm just thinking of somewhere where he could go where he could just flourish with and that's the thing too. He's still young to where if you go somewhere where he's not the featured back, have a decent year, someone gets hurt. Now he puts his numbers up. Now he gets another giant contract. So, that's. I hope he's a Dolphin because I know he's from that area. And selfishly, I watched him play at Florida State and have always loved watching him play. I would enjoy watching him every Sunday.
Get some comments here. On YouTube, why couldn't the Sixers trade Tobias Harris and Shake Milton, a couple pick swaps for Bradley Beal? I don't know. I would have done it. It's like at some point you got to shuffle the deck here in Philadelphia.
How about Maxey for Dame?
To me, it boils down to who in the organization has like enough pull to say we're not trading X, Y, or Z, and that's
if you want to win and win now, I mean that's a real now move. But and then you throw in what's his name? You throw in what's his name? The guy you kept talking about, Rob.
Tobias Harris.
Tobias Harris. You throw him in to match up with the salaries. And being that he's going to be an expiring contract,
but Portland Dame is weird though.
I feel like there's so much offseason left that there's something. There has to be something that they're having.
The NBA is weird, Doug, because everything happens. Everything happens really quick here after the NBA Finals.
Correct.
Whereas the NFL and MLB, they kind of breathe and everyone rests. And wait, and some guys don't even get signed until spring training opens.
Correct.
In recent years. So this happens really quick in the NBA. You have the draft. What's today? Today's Monday. The draft's Thursday. The finals just ended. And you already had a big trade. So, I mean, and then July 1st, which is a week away?
Right.
That's free agency. So it's all really quick. You don't have time, and I guess the bad teams have been scheming since the regular season ended on what their plan's going to be and how they're going to get better. But
they
play deep in the playoffs.
They've had plenty of time.
Yeah, they've had plenty of time, decades, years. Yeah, you're right about that. But the Sixers, they played into the playoffs, and now I don't know. It's just like you're just going to bring Harden back and it's going to be the same team all over again next year. Like, why, as a fan, would I expect a different result?
They must think it's.
I don't know what they think. I'm not a fan of the GM at all.
Yeah,
Zach Harris.
I just wonder, Zach Harris said rumors are that he's going to stay. What say you? You know what? He's probably is going to stay.
But the fact that he even has to think about it tells me that he's not the dude that's going to get the Sixers to an Eastern Conference Final or NBA Finals.
But he's
like at 33, you want to go back to one of the worst teams in the league because you like the strip clubs down there in Houston.
He likes points
instead of winning.
He likes.
No, he can score 100 points a game.
Correct. He can just score 45, and everybody loves him, and there's no pressure to win, and just go.
He'll make
there's a lot of guys like that.
He'll make the Hall of Fame with no rings.
Correct. There's a lot of guys in professional sports that don't care. They just want numbers. They're all about their own numbers. They don't care about wins and losses. Hey, I had a couple of runs in the playoffs, fine, but I just want to score 45 and be done with it. And I can shoot when I want to and whatever. Not play defense. It's not my fault. So I always feel like you'll find out a lot about so if the Sixers stand pat, they truly believe in their front office. It was scheme and it was coaching, right? You'll find out what they really thought. So you're on your third coach in what, 5 years? 4, 5?
Well, because they had Brown forever.
Okay, but then they went Doc, and then so Brown, Doc, this guy, right?
Nurse.
So,
yeah.
So you're telling me it's the same, arguably close to the same group. You're going to try another coach. You're telling me it's scheme, that it's just because they can't, Doc couldn't motivate them. Okay, you can say a lot about Doc.
Brett Brown was the coach for 10 years. I mean, 7 of those 10 years, they told him, go win 10 games and you're going to get a raise. That's what we want.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. I think that's kind of hard with the Sixers because of the way they decided to do things.
Oh, it goes back to what we talked about earlier. What's the success? What do you constitute a success as a 76er? Not just you, I'm not a fan, but as a front office.
Right.
Is making getting into the playoffs and making it to the second round or the Eastern Conference Finals, is that a success? Or is a championship a success? And if it's just making the playoffs, I know the Twins, they said they wanted to win a championship, but then us making the playoffs and getting in was okay enough for them. And it wasn't for us as players, but making it was good enough for them.
So, what percentage of players, professional athletes, care and want to win, as opposed to, being the Sports Center top 10 play or the highest paid guy or the guy with the sexiest numbers or the coolest highlights,
or the hottest wife?
That's a tough one, because I feel like there's a handful of guys that all they care about is winning, and there's the same guy can change. That's what makes Derek Jeters of the world so different, right? Derek didn't care about his personal numbers in the sense of himself. He had to put up numbers for his team to win. He wanted to win championships. That's all he wanted to do. That's all he knew, was championship or bust. And there's other guys that maybe have won a championship and now are here to put up numbers for financial gain.
I think I got his point, though.
Yeah.
Sorry. So, it's a tough percentage to put on because,
have you seen guys change?
Oh, yeah. That's a great question because there's you'd be shocked at how many guys actually never really cared about winning or losing. And that's where I go back to, how were they brought up? It goes back to who you draft, minor league guys. Every team, which drove me crazy as a minor league instructor, they always talked about developing, right? You always want to develop your players. Well, and then when they get to the big leagues, it's all about winning. And they always say, well, I was actually told by an organization, your winning ways is getting in the way of development. And I was like, wait, what'd you just say? Like, I actually got docked a bonus because they told me my winning ways is getting in the way of development. I thought, what if you construed winning as winning games? I construed winning as a task we're trying to perform, a mechanical flaw we're trying to get out. If I have set my kid up to fail, I lose him as a player coach, meaning I lose the communication level, I lose the trust, and now I've lost everything. Whereas if I teach enough kids to fix their flaws and teach them the proper way to go about it, the winning and losing takes care of itself. But at the end of the day, when you get to the big leagues, it's about one thing. It's about winning games. They don't care how many hits you get. They don't care how many strikeouts you have. Because at the end of the day, now they're paying you for those. And that's costing me money. They want you to win. And it's the hardest skill to teach is winning and how to expect to win. But yet it cost me a job in certain organizations because that's the number one skill you try to incorporate at the. You can totally tell organizations that don't believe in winning at the minor league level, and then all of a sudden they're dumbfounded when they get in the big leagues and they don't know how to win and they play for themselves.
Yeah, that's a problem.
And you sign with the Yankees, you know you're supposed to win.
Right.
Whether you're in rookie ball or in the Bronx, you are expected to win. It's known. There's an aura. There's an expectation level. That's period. That's it.
That's even in their minor leagues, Doug.
100%.
When George Steinbrenner was the owner of that team, he wanted at every level they were expected to win a championship, and if they didn't, their manager would get canned. I mean,
correct.
That's how I think that was a good thing.
Exactly. And that's why it's no surprise why I'm telling you the hardest thing to teach is winning. Is the culture of winning. I know the team that's in Minnesota now, like I would harp on them every day about like I never talked about wins and losses. I talked about expectations. If you play to the level of which I demand of you and that this organization demands of you, then wins and losses will take care of themselves. But it's an expectation level that I'm going to be at my best and that we are expected to walk away with a W. If we play the way we're supposed to play, and the outcome's going to be in our favor. And that there's an expectation level that has to be instilled and it has to be pounded upon to understand. And what it does, and they don't understand, is that it gets them off their individual numbers and just lets them play the game as a unit. And at the end of the season, at the end of the day, their personal numbers are better because their mind is off themselves and on the betterment of us.
There's a little reinforcement comment. Our man, Beef White on Facebook. The problem today is teams don't have the patience to build what they want to build. They want everything instantly.
They want the Google
which goes
button.
to your point. I've always been a proponent that winning is a skill set.
Without question.
Like, instant gratification that's sometimes that can get you in trouble.
Right. And like I said, you said it earlier, like a second round, is that a failure? Or is that a success or a failure? Depends, right? Depends on if it's your third crack with the same group, you're not getting anywhere, right? But if it's a young team who you've put together and all of a sudden they make a mini run and you expect, okay, expectations are getting better and the team's getting better, right? The first time you make it in a while, all of a sudden, if it's another stepping stone, there's a difference between a second round like depression and a second round where you can go home and go, and we made some nice strides this year. And I really, truly believe that if we bring this group back, they have another year of experience, and then this happens. So there's a fine line between it's all about your expectation level. And that's where I keep going back. And this comment's perfect. There's no, you have to have patience if you're.
Yeah. And then, like, I talk
the
about winning.
The New York Rangers, the hockey team, perfect example. The Rangers are a perfect example. Okay, they they miss the playoffs. Then the following season, they go all the way to the conference finals. So you're not really upset that they lose in the conference finals to Tampa Bay. Was I upset that? I mean, I was upset they lost, but I wasn't really disappointed. I was like excited.
I think your Giants are a prime example.
Right,
Giants were supposed to win 4 games last year.
Yeah, and they end up having a pretty good season. They make the playoffs. They win a playoff game. They lost to a much better team, but hopefully they've learned a little bit, and we're humbled enough to understand that there's a lot more to it, and that they have to get themselves they have to fix some of the flaws to get to the next level. So now if the Giants turn around and not make the playoffs this year, then it's like, all right, that season was a mirage. And it's kind of unfortunate for the Giants. They happen to play in one of the toughest divisions in the NFL, but sometimes that's the way it goes.
But if the Eagles lose that game in January last year to the Giants, you guys are on cloud 9, and the Eagles fans, I'm freaking out.
Correct. But we're not freaking out. We're not freaking out last year about losing to the Eagles, because the Eagles were a better team than the Giants. We all knew that. As a Giant fan, we knew that. Anybody who actually didn't think that we were hoping maybe we could ride the wave, that maybe they're a team of destiny. But realistically, you had to know. I mean, it would take the Giants to play a perfect game and the Eagles to make about 50 turnovers. That was the only way that was ever going to happen, and it didn't.
Bob Brinkman, B-ball requires chemistry to win. You have to have the right mix of talent and personality. The Sixers do not have that. Can the new coach make it happen? I don't know.
The one thing I will say about new coaches is you have a short window of, okay, what's he preaching? Is it real? Is it BS? If that's the one thing about a coach that's hard. If you have a team that's already their personality is already set, right? And that's what blows me away about football and basketball for that matter. It's you bring in this coach that's dealing with a bunch of personalities. Basketball, obviously, a lot less players than football, but you have this huge group where you can only preach. I will say this: players don't know much, but they can smell BS when they see it, smell it, and taste it. And if it's not real, you'll lose those guys before he ever steps foot in the building. You can buy into it all you want and believe all the rah-rah, but if you don't have any substance to what you're bringing, it doesn't matter what kind of rah-rah speech you have. You better have substance to make these guys better, and you better have a backbone to say, hey, you know what? That's the line I always heard was, that's not how we do things around here. If you were the new guy, well, that speaks volumes, right? Because you're hey, there's a standard, and I really truly believe that, I don't think this can come from a coach. I would think Doc Rivers, that's what he's great at, right? Motivation, a guy who's actually played before, who's been in the trenches understand what a Game 7 or a NBA Finals feels like. How a guy out of nowhere that's going to fix that comes from, to me, your best player has a lot to do with what your team chemistry, or what your team if it's tough, if it's pushover, it stems from your superstar player you have on your team.
Doug, you had a great manager in Minnesota at one point. I don't know if you ever played for him, Tom Kelly.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Did you play for him at
Oh yes.
Okay. A guy like him.
I sat down by him and got called up from him.
Okay. Now a guy like him. Okay. What makes a manager like him different than your normal manager? A guy that can get you to win and do it twice, no less. On a small market team. That's not easy to do.
I say this a lot. I think Tom Kelly preached fundamentals more than I look at guys like Tom Kelly, guys like I think Bill Belichick. If he was trying to become a head coach now, he'd have a really hard time getting hired. and that you're talking about two of the greatest. Bill Belichick's probably the best NFL head coach outside of Vince Lombardi because of the fact he has his own way of doing it. You may not like the deliverance, but the substance is wonderful. Tom Kelly preached fundamentals. If you didn't play the game the way he demanded you to play, you didn't play, or you went back to AAA. He didn't care. He ran the organization over the GM. He was very hard. He didn't hide it. He told you exactly how he felt, which today's game you would get probably a lawsuit filed against you if you said the things that he said to us. And the one thing about Tom Kelly he could run a bullpen. And he was the best, one of the best, if not the best, in-game bullpen managers I ever saw. He did more with less than anybody I've ever played for. It was a pain in the ass to play for him, don't get me wrong. As a young player, it was you couldn't make him happy. You couldn't do things right 100%. Like you just couldn't. There was always something because his attention to detail was impeccable. But once you proved you could play at that level, he would run through a brick wall for you. And that's the difference between like that. He was amazing, but at the same time, to go through it as a young player was a lot of sleepless nights and a lot of questions asking yourself, do I really belong at this level? Because he makes me feel like I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
But don't you think at the end of the day, you're able to accomplish it, and that's got to feel extra good.
Here's a great example. We had a drill called Good Morning America, and it was a drill. He would roll ground balls to third base, shortstop, second base, first base, and that was after we already took 15, 20 minutes of ground balls after an infield already, and this is at 7:15 in the morning. And now it's a half field, and the pitchers are lined up on the third base line and the first base line in spring training. And he rolled balls for 2.5, 3 hours a morning. And we would field it, throw it to first, field it, throw it to first, no place. And the whole while he's doing it, he's screaming at our pitchers. This is why you throw the ball over the plate. Throw it over the plate, these guys will catch it. And at the end of the day, that's why we got beat in Minnesota. We got beat a lot. But we never beat ourselves because we were fundamentally to where it was morphed into us to understand what to do. And there was a system, right? That's what we talked about. It goes back to the system. They drafted players and he played in the big leagues because defense, base running, whatever his thing was, throw strikes, pitch to contact guys. And we defended better than any team in the big leagues. I don't care what anybody says. We were the best defensive team, hands down, in the big leagues for the whole time that Tom Kelly was manager and that era because it was pounded into us fundamentals, and we knew what to do with the ball. And trust me, there's not a road stadium that was more intimidating than having Tom Kelly scream at you in front of your home fans on a backfield in Fort Myers in spring training. Like his voice. I mean, I'm talking this guy would pull us out after big league wins on the road and hit us fly balls and hit us ground balls. After games, after we won a major league game, we would put us back on the field if he didn't like the way we played.
So
now, when did you
the correlation, I'm sorry, Rob.
Go ahead.
The correlation is, can Nick Nurse get more out of these guys than what Rivers did?
It's a possibility. I don't think Tom Kelly didn't make me play any harder, right? He didn't make me play. He didn't want to make me try any harder. It just, that comes from within. That comes from a place they can't quantify on a piece of paper. Like my desire to be good, my desire to be a major league quality player is from me. I joke around like I hate the word pressure because I don't believe in it. Pressure only creeps into the unprepared. I was never unprepared. I may not have played well at times, but like when people like he can't handle New York or he can't handle Boston. I had a bad year in New York. I had a decent year in New York. I just was shortened from an injury. But no one's going to put more pressure to succeed on themselves than the player himself. Go ahead, Rob. What were you going to say?
Yeah. Well, what? Kelly went from 01. He was the manager in 01.
I got called up in 98, played in 99, got sent back in 2000. He was my manager in 01.
And then you went to Gardenhire.
Correct.
And that's when you started kind of putting it together a little more in terms
I think it was more to it than that. I think Tom Kelly wanted an extension. I might be wrong on this. I'm 95% positive on it. TK wanted an extension. They wanted to give him one more year. And he's like, huh? Like,
yeah.
Like I put up with, 19 rookies in 98 and 99, and I finally got him good, and now you want to give me a year? So he was like, lack of a better term, I think he stuck his middle finger up and was like, I'm done. And it worked out that Gardy got the job, thank God, and away we went. And, I know what the strangest thing that ever happened to me in pro ball was, so TK's my manager in 01, and 2002 spring training, it's Ron Gardenhire's show. But Tom Kelly came to spring training and was in the clubhouse daily. So it was like, I'll never forget this. So Gardy's the manager now. Gardy walks up to me in 2002. It's before a spring training game. And Gardy walks up, puts his arm around me, and goes, hey, I want you to take some pitches today. I want you to see some pitches. So, try to work the count a little bit in your first couple of bats, and then I'll get you out of there. And I was like, okay, no problem. As soon as he walked away and walked back to his office, Tom Kelly put his arm around me and goes, the first fastball you see, you can put the barrel on it and go. And I was like, huh, well, there you go. Like, here I have the manager who gave me my shot in the big leagues, who's telling me to swing at the first fastball I put my barrel on. And then I have my manager now who's telling me be selective and make sure you work the count because I want you to see some pitches today. So it was kind of a weird dynamic to have both of them in the clubhouse at the same time as being a young player, kind of becoming who I was as a major league player.
I guess Gardenhire and Kelly, are they like same style, different styles?
Yeah, I mean, to the sense that Gardy was a lot more practical joker. A little more, I won't say a little more fiery in the sense of like showing it. Tom Kelly was very like, it's hard to put it into words what Tom Kelly is. He was kind of more of an arrogance and more of a I am the shit and you just kind of look down on you.
He was tactician. This is how we're going to do it. We're going to do it my way, and or you're going to be out.
It's my way or the highway. Whereas Gardy was more of a joker, music in the clubhouse. You guys have fun, but when we walk out the door at 7:00 for a 7:07 game, we're all business. And I think it was a perfect storm for us as far as we've earned the right through TK. We kind of got an exhale moment with Gardy going, okay, like we're not going to be looked under a microscope. We're allowed to make a mistake and not sit for 4 days. And away it went. And it was a match made in heaven for our group because we got to exhale. We needed the discipline that we had, and we were disciplined before we got there, but he instilled in us a way to be a pro, and we held it. And yet we kept moving on, and Gardy was kind of like the perfect mix of both of them, where he was stickler to the fundamentals, but it wasn't to nauseam because of that's the way it's supposed to look. Once we proved we could do things like play defense, we didn't have to do it for 3.5 hours a morning. We could do it for 30 minutes. No, I'll get my work in. I'm a pro. I'll take care of it. So that we got to spend some more time on some other things.
So I guess my point is you went from the tactician to a guy that was a little bit looser. Sixers, yes. Brett Brown was a player's coach. Mm-hmm. Doc Rivers is a player's coach. Now you're going to I don't know if Nick Nurse is going to be a tactician, but I think he's much more X and O than Doc and Brett Brown were. Problem is, Embiid, Harden, all these guys, they played for players coaches that weren't, Tom Kelly. I mean, he was a stickler for the fundamentals.
And that's where the problem starts, right? That's where if this guy has a a very small window to win those two over. You get your superstar to buy into what you're preaching, the rest will follow. If you don't, it's going to be a miserable situation.
Yeah, but he's got the ring to prove it, right?
I don't think the players would care about that. Not these. I don't think that stuff holds weight anymore. I don't think Joel Embiid gives a shit about Nick Nurse's ring in whatever 2018.
I would think that you, as an organization, especially a basketball team with only 12 to 14 players on your roster, whatever it is, 12, I would think that you would work together, right? If you're making them change, you would let Embiid know, right? Hey, what do you think about you don't tell them you're going to hire them. You ask them, what do you think about this? Or what do you think about this guy? I would think at that point you work together with the MVP, right? Because the idea is they want to build a championship around you, right? So I would think you'd be involved in, if he is someone he didn't like, I don't think they would have hired him in the first place. Right? I mean, that's just a bad business decision.
I guess we're going to find out.
There's a lot of frauds, too. There's a lot of frauds. And I'm not saying this, versus or the new coach is. I'm just saying in general, like you might find out, he might find out that the fraud is the one that's tipping off every night, right? The one that won the MVP. You don't know that. It's like that's the one thing about sports. The other guy is always better, which makes no sense to me, right? The other guy is always the better option as a coach. The other guy is always the better player than what you already have. Like that's where they don't ever want to admit that the problem is staring you dead in the face 82 times a year, and that's that. It could be that too. It's like, how many coaches does it take before you realize, hey, this guy is he's never going to get out of the second round? And that's just it's a question. It's not my feeling. It's just
the Sixers under this process, they were just grabbing guys. They were grasping at straws. They were trying to accumulate the most talent they can. They had no coach. They didn't have a coach. They had a coach in Brett Brown. He'd rather be everyone's buddy than be the tactician that Tom Kelly was for you guys. Like, if Brett Brown had stones and took all these second-round picks and cast off, and, Brett Brown's never called a half-court set in his life. And I've talked about this for years and years and years with Brad and all the other guys here on A2D Radio. Like, no system was ever put into place.
How do you know that?
Well, I watched the game.
I understand that. But, here's the thing, too. The one thing I've learned as a coach over just being a player is you can coach and you can have the most knowledge of what you're trying to accomplish. If your players don't buy into what you're saying, you can be Yoda and you'll never get anything across. So if the players don't buy into the sets you're running and they don't run them right, any good coach that's worth a damn is never going to come to the podium and be like, look, I drew this up and these guys just completely screwed it up. Right? So we'll never know. And that's the one thing about coaching that I've learned, the fact that how many coaches have jumped on a grenade for a player's lack of fundamental simplicity, that I find it hard to believe that Doc Rivers can win a championship in Boston, but all of a sudden he forgot what he's doing in Philadelphia. Right?
Exactly. That's the problem.
How much of coaching is identifying with your teams and getting them to buy in? Because all these guys are good.
Look, if your coach believes in you, and if you truly believe, like Spoelstra have some magic sauce, right? Like Spoelstra could draw up a hangman during a timeout, and his players will run it because they've injected so much confidence in him. What came first? The X's and O's part to gain the confidence in him? Or is it the fact that he keeps spitting out? Because a lot of coaches talk the talk, right? hey, you got the shot. Charles Barkley always said, I never had a coach give me confidence in shooting, but I've had one take it away. That's huge. That makes total sense. Coaches want to say, hey, baseball, right? I want you to run the bases aggressively, but as soon as you make a mistake, they throw their hands up like, what's this guy doing? Well, if you're going to do things aggressively, you're going to make mistakes, but I'd rather have the mistakes aggressive than passive. And it goes back to if a coach once a player believes in my coach has my back, they can draw up anything that they can say is going to work, and they'll work. It's all about execution. And that's where good coaching is, that you have to, like Doc might have been speaking, French, and they don't speak English, right? And that's the like Doc's IQ might have been up here and the players were down here. That's your job as a coach, is to get on the same page and make languages work for what your team is good at and what your team isn't good at. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So yes. I don't know what you change with Harden and Embiid to make them. I mean, the guy won the MVP. So that's what I don't understand. Doc got an MVP trophy out of your center, right? He's MVP means you're the best player in the Eastern Conference, right?
That's
so you got the best. That was his first one, am I right? Or was that his first MVP, right?
Joel Embiid's first MVP, best player in the whole league.
The first time he's ever won an MVP trophy. And so Doc gets no credit in making him an MVP, but takes all the blame for being ousted in the second round again.
Well, I think that the team losing the way they did,
Game 7,
they got blown out. They got blown out. The guys quit.
The Celtics got blown out in Game 7 by a team that had a bunch of undrafted guys. I get what you're saying. I'm just playing devil's advocate here.
I hear you. Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's where I keep changing the narrative, and it's like, well,
I don't think Doc is a bad coach. Look, Doc's the whipping boy here in Philadelphia. He gets a lot of blame.
I was shocked he took that job. I was like, you went from the Clippers to this, right? Am I wrong? You go from the Clippers to this? To the 76ers?
Yeah.
I was like,
because he blew a bunch of 3-1 leads in LA.
Okay, I get that. But that's why I was like, damn, it only takes one. It's like you always say, it only takes one idiot to hire you, right? It only takes one team to be like, damn, you just and those Clipper teams, I personally think we're way better than the 76ers ever have been. I think.
The Clipper team? Well, they had
the Doc had?
They had Chris Paul and Blake Griffin in his prime. They had DeAndre Jordan. They had some guys.
Some dudes. That team should have went farther than it did, right? Even with blowing 3-1 leads. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's something because
I guess my point is if the Sixers don't get routed in Game 7 and just quit and it looked bad, and then everyone's, like you said, with Embiid and Harden, everyone wants all the accolades but none of the blame. I don't think Doc gets fired. If they go out in that second round Game 7 and have they fight the good fight and they just lose, I think Doc's still the coach.
Well, I agree. That's the difference between cities, right? I feel. And it's the same, you can say East Coast, whatever it is, but to me, the Celtics quit the second Tatum
they rolled over
his ankle. And you're dealing with the same thing. It's like, wait a minute, that's a toughness thing that you just can't make today. Like they're so quick to I have a crutch of why we're going to lose. Here we go. There's no. That's not again. If they lose by 1 point, does Doc still have a job? Now, if a team quits on somebody, absolutely.
Because you can't fire 12 players.
If you collapse down the stretch to not get in, that's managing, head coach, whatever you want to call it. But once you get in, if you get in and have a game like that Game 7, I just don't think a guy should lose their job over. If you have a 4-game lead with a week or 10 games to play and you just collapse, there's all the reasons for a dismissal. But once you get to the playoffs and you get to a Game 7, I don't care if you're up 3-0, 3-1, down 3-1, whatever it is. They get it. The guy from Boston, who I think is way over his skis, he gets a mulligan because he was down 3-0 and made it 3-3. Like with that team, if that team
Right.
played the Heat 10 times, you would think they should beat them at least 8 out of 10, talent-wise.
Talent-wise, for sure.
Like effort-wise, like their effort was in question. You should never question effort in any playoff series, let alone the Eastern Conference Finals. Right? The effort. You're going to tell me you lack effort in the playoff game?
Miami played like a team possessed.
They were just relentless. They had nothing to lose.
Yeah,
so it's
listen, they played the same way against Denver. Denver's
just way better. Like that's
Denver.
And they ran out of gas. They really, I feel like they ran out of gas.
Yeah, and listen, unfortunately, the one thing Denver had that Miami couldn't do anything about was they couldn't. They had no answer for Jokic because
no one did.
Yeah,
and I think the Heat shot like crap. Like and that's because of their defense, their length, their size.
But I mean that's understandable.
You're
not going to blame. You don't blame a coach for that.
No, and I just feel like it's effort wise. I think that again, it all boils down to your superstar. If your superstar plays his rear end off, and that's all. If your coach can get your superstar to buy into what you're teaching and what you're preaching, the other guys will follow. They should follow. If they're not, they're gone.
I think the Sixers in that series against Boston, they lost that series in Game 6.
They played like crap in that game too.
No, but that's where they lost.
I just get a kick out of that. Like, why is it? Why?
I don't think they quit. They quit in Game 7. They didn't quit in Game 6. They just played bad. They scored 86 points on their home floor in a closeout game. They got punked out because they weren't as good.
Is it coincidental, or is it just like again? It's like that's what I don't get. Like I don't understand. I get it. The whole adage, like easy for the media and the talk shows. It's like baseball. They lacked energy. They had no life today. Well, life as an offense, as a baseball team, has a direct correlation to what the guy on the mound's doing to you. Everybody, they look flat tonight. Well, no, we just got shoved up our butt by some guy. Like, there's hard to have energy when you're going back to the dugout after every at bat, right?
Okay, that brings us to baseball. Okay. Speaking of that, my New York Yankees, Doug. It's more than a guy in the mound pitching their ass off. Okay, the Yankees got smoked by 3 awful pitchers this past weekend. Okay. And there is no excuse for that. I mean, the Twins were down 3-0 to the Red Sox tonight, and bang, it's 3-3, just like that. The Twins come right back and bounce back, and now it's 3-3. I mean,
6-3.
Oh, now it's 6-3.
6-3 Boston. Top 6.
Oh, Boston just took.
I don't think the Twins can score 6 runs in a game. I don't think it's humanly possible.
Listen, you never. Listen. Bottom line is they're still in first place, correct?
Yeah, I guess you could say that.
Yeah, and
there
is a trade deadline coming up, and they can improve their team.
That's going to be interesting.
Yeah,
what everybody does. Everybody does.
Yeah. By the way, I was watching. I've been watching a really awful game. Tonight between the Blue Jays and the Marlins. Arias is just
Tony Gwynn, baby.
My dude, man.
He's too. I mean, if you pitch him inside, he slams the damn ball down the right field line. If you pitch him outside, he smacks it to left field. This guy, he's unbelievable.
I know it's a weird concept these days to actually hit the ball where it's pitched and not try to do too much. I know that's odd.
I get it. I mean,
I know. I'm just saying, like in general, like, the gurus want to swing up and launch angle and all this crap, and it's just like, well, that's how we were taught for centuries was what Arias is doing. And
does he have any home runs?
What's that?
Two home runs. I was just looking up how many home runs he has.
He'll end up with probably 10, I would think.
He's got 2 right. He's got 2 right now.
Yeah,
it's a big park where he's
the guy. He's hitting 400 on the nose. It looks like. I mean, I have MLB channel on in the background. They're doing updates. The Mets are up on the Astros 5-0. But I mean, he's 15 strikeouts and 21 walks.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's almost July. Like he's putting the ball in play. Like I talk about it all the time. One of my rallying cries is sports is all about putting pressure on your opponent. You're going to go out there and swing for the fences and strike out all the time. Like, that's not putting any pressure on your opponent.
Correct. And that's
75 points higher.
And what's getting lost in all this, too, is the fact that, like, if you ask any top-notch pitcher, I would say if you ask 10, let's just say the Justin Verlanders of the world, behind closed doors, if you ask 10 of those type guys, if you had a chance to face Aaron Judge or Luis Arias in October, which one would you choose?
Judge.
They would pick Judge. Not every one of them would say that.
He's got some holes,
and that's what makes him dangerous, though, right? Because he has holes and guys go after him, and yet if they miss that hole, he hits it in the third deck, and that's the wonderful game of baseball, right? Whereas Luis Arias, you could stop and put the ball exactly where you want it with the velocity you wanted to have it, and he can still spoil you. And there's the difference, and that's what makes the game so wonderful is the fact that you can execute everything you wanted to do right. And Judge has hit plenty of home runs that way where they've executed their pitch, and it still ends up in the stands. And each one, granted, if the game's in the line in second and third and nobody out, they don't want to face Arias. But those same 10 guys up 2 with 1 guy on first and 2 outs don't want to see Aaron Judge come to the plate. So that's the cat and mouse we play. But like that old school, you call it old school, but he can just flat out hit. He's been like that since he was born. But like I said, that kid won a batting title in the Venezuelan Winter League at 16. And there's big leaguers in that league.
If either one of them come up in extra innings, okay, as the leadoff man with a runner on second, okay, they're going to get walked.
There's no way I'm like.
Nobody.
I played for him. I said, "There's no way I'm pitching to you."
Judge never. When the Yankees play extra innings, Judge never gets to hit.
No,
never.
That's where baseball's tough because you can eliminate one guy. You can eliminate 2 guys at the right circumstance. But there's like I told Luis when I played for me, there's no way I'd pitch to you from the 7th inning on. No way.
What do you think of that rule, dog? With the ghost runner on second in extra innings?
I think it's invaluable for minor league games. Big league game. Why? Because it saves on arms. It saves on travel.
Right.
I see the benefit of it, and it's at the end of the day, we all know this by now. It all goes back to the mighty dollar, right? They don't want to ever admit this, but it all comes back to money. Okay. So the reason why they've incorporated this, because everybody doesn't want long games, because what happens in extra innings? Everybody gets up and goes where? Home, right? They stop beer sales after the 7th inning. Okay, so everybody leaves. And from a manager's perspective, I love it because you get a major league game that goes 15 innings. I don't care if you're the AAA manager or if you're the GCL manager, there's going to be moves within the next 3 hours. So you're losing guys in the shuffle. Here's the shuffle begins. Whereas if you can eliminate that and make the game only go 10 or 9 or 11, whatever it is, 11 innings, you don't have to make as many moves. Every move is what? It's not just the ticket from, let's just say, Toledo to Detroit. It's Erie to Toledo. It's Lakeland to Erie. You know what I'm saying? So like you're talking plane ticket. Those add up after time, and all of a sudden the money gets it saved everybody in the long run.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, I never thought of that. I never thought of it that way. That makes a lot of sense.
I just don't.
I don't like it, but I also don't like. I hate worse.
Major leagues.
The one thing I don't like even more than that is managing extra inning games where you go 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 innings where all 3 guys that go to the plate from both sides are trying to hit home run. It's like, what are we doing? Like
you don't have to do that with you're starting with a guy on second. The Phillies.
No, I know. I'm saying when they didn't have that guy at second base, it's like you'd have 5 innings of guys just trying to go deep, and it's pointless because trying to go up there and hit a home run is next to almost impossible. It's like you can't just go up there and hit a home run. You can't even take batting practice that way, most guys. But like a guy at second, it changes things, and it makes it a little more. It gives everybody a rep too. In the minor leagues, it gives the manager a rep. It gives the pitchers a rep. It gives the guy at the plate a strategy to, if you're the visitor, do you play for 1 or do you? It changes everything. It gives you another rep as far as like situational baseball, right? Order, last guy, whoever's running at second, the last out might be slow. You don't know. So depends on how much pen depth you have. So a lot of things go into this. I liked it in the sense of it took some time to get and it gave me a chance to play out scenarios I had in my head to try different nights. All right, you know what? I'm going to bunt the guy over and see what happens. I'm going to try to hit him over, or I'm just going to let him play it out and see what happens. And you've
actually managed quite a bit with this rule.
Oh yeah.
It sounds like okay.
Yep. And
does it change whether you're home or road?
Oh, home makes a huge difference. You know what you're playing against.
Right.
You like in my opinion, like when I was at home, like. Either way, if I was on offense first or defense first, in my head, that run scored. I'm playing against the next guy. I'm playing against the guy at home. Like, that's the guy I got to keep from scoring. All right? And then, however the first out is made, then all of a sudden, where he ended up, right? If he gets to 3rd and 1 out, I might, depending on where I'm at in the order, I might take a chance and cut the run off. Or if they got top of the order coming up, I'm going to leave my guys back and think, okay, I think I can score with my guys coming up. I think I can score. And depending on where they are in their bullpen, there's a lot of things that go into these decisions.
Brad, you're stepping up on Sports Jeopardy tonight?
Yeah, they kind of talked me into it.
There you go.
I didn't really want it. Chrome. I didn't really want to do it, but it's like, they're going to keep bugging me until I do it. So I figure I might as well just get it over with.
Well, hopefully you have better luck than I did. I got smoked by Brian Daly.
You know what? It depends on what they're asking. If they're asking basketball, or college basketball, I'm going to get slaughtered. Okay, because that's not my thing. If there's a lot of hockey and football and baseball,
you sell yourself short. If they ask you like older basketball, you'll be all right.
Yeah, if it's older, but if it's newer, I'm dead. And if it's college football or college basketball, I'm dead too. It has, pro. I think I can handle
Jeopardy. So like you can look at the category, you can dictate.
Well, yeah. If there's hockey, I'm gonna smoke. I'll smoke them. But if it's
anyway, Sports Jeopardy.
I'm out of that.
Sports Jeopardy. Brad Ryer versus Michael Chromiak. Is coming up next. That'll do it for us here on the Sports Hounds. Until next Monday, Doug Mientkiewicz, Brad Ryer. I'm Rob Brinkman.
I will see you in a week. I am going to coach the 18U team, so I will see you guys in 2 weeks.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, we need a full report.
Yeah, I got you.
We want to report.
I got you. And hopefully we got some draft picks to talk about Philly stuff.
Doug, is Deuce Robinson going to be at the camp?
I don't know. I haven't got a list yet, but like I said, we got plenty. Once I get over that, I'm curious to see who, like the draft. We can talk about that. Hopefully, the Phillies take a guy or a couple guys that I've had a chance to see and kind of give you guys or the Yankees, whatever it is. We'll have something. We'll have a little knick-knack in case something else falls through. We got something to talk about.
Nice.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, right. I'm like infatuated with this guy, Deuce Robinson. I read about him online. Well, he's the number one receiver and tight end, and he's probably going to go top 10 in the draft. He's got a dual shot scholarship to USC. I don't know. He just looks like it.
He's a senior?
I think he's about to be in the draft. So yeah, he's so in August, I guess he'll be a freshman. I guess he can.
I'll have the juniors. I'll have the guys for next year's draft. Like this year's draft I had last year.
Okay.
Which I'm looking forward to too, because I remember those guys too. And I have a list.
6'6", 225.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Studded football, studded baseball.
Dave Winfield kind of.
Sounds like Dave Winfield, except throwing 100 and hitting bombs. Dave Winfield style.
Yep.
Now you're preparing for. You're picking the team to go to the World Championships or?
Right. The first 10 days are. We divide the teams into 4, and I will manage one of those teams, and then we play 5 or 6 games, and then we have a championship game. It's funny, we do the last game. We do a 3-inning international tiebreaker where we have first and second, nobody out. And we actually practice that because we have to go over that. The international tiebreakers, first and second. And yeah. So, then we cut it from 100 to 40. And then they go to the trials are 40. And then we cut 40 to 20. And then 20 goes to the World Championships. And I think it's in Taiwan this year. So we cut it from 40 to 20. Like usually it's 6 weeks later. Last year went Cary, North Carolina with 100, 40 to Fort Myers, and then 20 to Sarasota because the thing was in Sarasota.
All right. Well, best of luck.
Thank
we
you,
look
guys.
forward to talking to you about it in a couple weeks.
And I keep
All right,
talking
Sports
track of
Jeopardy
Philly stuff.
Yeah. We're playing good. Not much to complain about.
I told you they get the A's. They can't make a run now. We got trouble.
I can be a knee-jerk fan at times, but I've actually been preaching patience this year on the Phillies.
That's good. See, we're learning. See,
You're teaching.
Teach Brad that will be in good shape. His Facebook posts are like he's about to jump off a bridge because they lost one game.
I've been trying.
No, it's not one. It's 4.
I've been trying for 7 years.
It's 4, and it was the Mets and Red Sox. You know, Doug.
I know.
You
You
know
lose
what that
one game with the
means.
Red Sox. It's like 7. I get it.
To be fair,
like
it's only
10
the Yankees.
Listen, when they get swept by the Red Sox, that means there should be a managerial change and a general manager change.
Now you get swept by the Red Sox or something like something has to be.
They need that has Boone or Cashman. That's a fireable offense. I'm sorry. The Red Sox are in last place. I don't care if they're over 500. They're in last place, and they're the Red Sox. That's a fireable offense. George must be rolling in his grave, watching his pathetic son do such a horrible job destroying this proud franchise.
But it'll be the same one, and game 1 in October will be like, oh, we're going to win the whole thing.
Yeah. He will.
What's Cashman's next move going to be to bring in that injured pitcher? What's his name from the Astros? That'll be our big free agent signing this year.
Oh gosh!
All right, go get him.
McCullers. That'll be Cashman's next move. Let's bring in Lance McCullers. Yeah. Let's get him. He'll fit in perfectly.
All right, go get him on Sports Jeopardy.
Good luck on Jeopardy.
All right, thank you.
Good job, everybody.
Okay, bye.